Hello, it's Pavlo, and a few days ago, one of my viewers wrote me a comment that they are unsubscribing because I'm too focused on the expensive models. I don't think it's fair because, of course, I do review some expensive models, but I also do a fair share of mid-segment and budget models. But anyway, today I wanted to tell about really affordable models that I have really high hopes. So probably I will consider this review as a tribute to that viewer that unsubscribed, because it's a $15 or $16 model. It depends on different stores, and it's Tanchjim One. I didn't review a lot of Tanchjim models, but I did review, if I remember right, it was Darling, and I was really stunned on how great that earphones were in terms of sound tuning and actually design. So for affordable model, of course, I don't expect that level, but to be honest, it's really curious to see how good it will look, especially taking into account that for me it's still surprising that it's possible to make like $15 or $16 pair of in-ear monitors, pack them, add some accessories, and actually sold it with profit. So it's surprisingly affordable level of earphones, but even box looks nice. And you can see on the front we're getting product photo. Actually, the photo doesn't show how good they are in real life, and the label mentioning that they can be wear two ways, both cable up and cable down. I like symmetrical cylindrical cases for that. And most interesting part is like some good dynamic driver and 16 ohms of impedance and sensitivity 126 decibels, but it's not per milliwatt, it's per volt RMS, so it's not super sensitive earphones, but not too hard to drive. And inside of this outer cover we're getting, you can see, really great polygraphy of the internal box. Another lesson for some budget companies to learn. And two set of tips, 3 pair each, some booklet and manual, also storage pouch. Not a fan of this material, but taking into account that it's like almost free accessory, it's nice. And of course earpieces themselves. I like that they use not super sticky bag and it doesn't tear. So let's unwind them, and as I've said, in real life they are more beautiful than on this photo here, because photo doesn't show you that they are made of two parts. And the outer part is some metal, probably aluminum, with the company's logo, and it hosts socket. So almost all this outer part is occupied by socket. You can see that socket case is almost all that metal part. But they decided to make a step further, and for those who are curious, there is a transparent part where you can see the driver itself. So looks really stylish, even for much more expensive models, but for the affordable one it's absolutely stylish. It has small compact case, so it will fit into almost any ears without problems. Maybe they create this model with ladies in mind with smaller ears, but of course they will be good in every gender ears anyway. They have nice thickness, so they work as ear plugs, so their sound isolation is slightly above average. And you can see that there is a pretty extended long spout, improving the fit. Here is the lip for holding the tips and protective grill that shields this small mini driver inside from the all dangers of derbies and dust getting into this case. So let's put tips back. Here it is. And here is a replaceable cable. By default it's marked as right for this earpiece, and this is marking for the cable down varying, because spouts are angled a little bit, and if this earpiece is right, of course it will be natural to carry it this way. If you want over-ear varying, it won't be the proper angle, so you need to swap them left with right, and in this case it will be working as it should be. So don't be shy to swap them if you need. Pay attention that letters should be on the outer part of 2-pin connector to provide you a proper phase. And they even cared to put this bump onto the left earpiece, so you can easily distinguish left and right without looking. So here is Tanchjim logo and model name 1. Cable itself looks pretty attractive. They put strain reliefs here, also a nice touch. It's transparent insulation, and inside you can see 2 wires of nice silver color. Actually, this model looks really like rich and pretty great for the budget segment. Everything is light, transparent, silver, so attractive look in my opinion. Regular splitter with chin slider, and under the splitter it goes for wires braided down to regular, pretty compact 3.5mm jack. So in my opinion it's much more than one can desire in this segment. You can ask me the most important question, what about burn-in? And I will answer you that I burned them in for 48 hours and there were no significant changes in sound signature. I didn't expect it, but as usual I need to check it just in case. And speaking about less important questions like the sound, I can say that it's really pleasant sound signature towards for mass market, but at the same time pretty enjoyable. So bass is accented, it's not the biggest accent, but it's not minor at the same time. It's like normal or like medium bass accent, not mid bass but medium bass accent. And depth is not maximum, but pretty good and enough to give you that sense of rumble. So with electronic music, at least to my taste, it provides enough of weight, enough of rumble and stuff like that. For some acoustic instruments, of course, it's lacking a bit of that small nuances and details, but at the same time, thanks to normal speed, pretty decent impact and nice texturing, you getting pleasant representation for the acoustic instruments. They will be a bit enlarged and pushed forward, but in many cases it gives you like more sense of enjoyment for the low frequencies. And here is first example. I thought about something classical, but then I found a bit rarely used track. It's Battle of Jericho, covered by Hugh, Laurie, and of course here you'll get really nice acoustic bass, pretty enjoyable, and at the same time it builds a pleasant contrast with vocals and other instruments. So really enjoyable experience, and that acoustic double bass also sounds engaging. Mid frequencies actually have good detalization. It's a case of good balance between resolution and weight. It's like what typically dynamic drivers does. There is a slight bleed of bass towards the lower mids, but it's mostly unavoidable because here we're getting accented low frequencies. So when there are some pretty noticeable lows in the record, it will be bit shadowing lower part of the mids. But thanks to the overall good detalization on the mid frequencies, you get nice and still readable mids, but I mean middle mids and upper mids, but lower mids can be sometimes softened by this effect. Imagery stage is slightly above average in width and about average in depth, but layering is pretty nice, and the instrument's positioning too. Sometimes they tend to move vocal a bit forward, but but only on some records. In general, you'll get a good sense of realism and nice instrument separation, pleasant vocals, and you'll get typical upper mids accent to make everything more spicy, but it's not too much, so it won't be shouty. And they're not super critical for the quality of records, so it's just the earphones for like almost all genres and types of music for non-audiophiles, of course. And example for the mid frequencies will be bit unusual. I really like Moonspell, I like their first album. I still remember what wonder it was when I randomly bought it at local record store, and it said that they basically didn't return to their first album style. They are doing great, but just something different. And here on this track you'll get like that sinister whispers of Fernando Ribeiro, you'll get great keyboards that makes everything like close to epic vocals and lot of interesting stuff, and I still impressed by this record. And actually drums are getting a bit more forward here because they recorded with nice amount of low frequencies. I won't call it a big issue, but still they are grabbing a bit of attention towards the lower parts of the sonic spectrum. And the treble is really good in terms of overall balance. It's accented and they don't try to be warmer or comfortably sounding, but at the same time they're not being too bright or hyper energetic on the high frequencies. Treble extension is slightly above average. It's typical dynamic drivers with slightly slower than average attacks and decays. And when some sibilance is present in the records, you will hear it, but at the same time this model won't boost it more than it was in the record. So good airness and really good basic overtone saturation, balancing the low frequencies in a pretty nice and engaging signature. And example for the low frequency, for the high frequencies, of course, will be Niechęć, Prozak. And it's also a good test track for bass and mids because they have nice bass line and lot of instruments at mids, but also they have a lot of great percussion that gives nice overtones and sense of airness. Of course, these earphones are not perfect for this track, it requires something much more expensive, but in general their overall musical representation fits nicely into this track, especially when you are on the street, for example, and it sounds engaging. Speaking about the sources, they will benefit from some affordable digital tonal converter. As far as I know, Tanchjim has some dongle decks. I didn't test them, but I'm kind of sure that they definitely tried the gear together and it works perfectly. Speaking about the compressions, recently I reviewed Moondrop Jew, and it's a bit less weighty and closer to more natural signature, but at the same time it was earphones with built-in digital tonal converter, so you're getting less of freedom to experiment with sources compared to this model. And Fuse FD11, they have a bit faster and punchier bass, and at the same time they are a bit more forward in the treble area, so if you're sensitive to treble, maybe it will be a bit too much for you. But in general, FD11 is yet another step forward, and Tanchjim has also models in more in higher segment, and soon I will tell you about yet another model made by them. But so far it was about Tanchjim One. I always try to call them Zero, but they had Zero some time ago. Now One is actual model. Really good piece of gear for those who like just enjoy the music. They will definitely deliver it for you. Thank you for listening, thank you for your attention, and of course have a nice day.